I have never played Classic World of Warcraft, so I set out the goal to reach the max level, but I'll do it in the infamous hardcore game mode. Is this a good idea? No, of course not. When even seasoned WoW players are struggling to make it there, and it takes you hundreds of hours of gameplay to finish that challenge, but a single mistake, one simply being unlucky, or a soul disconnect, will make you delete your character and start anew. But funny enough, despite, or maybe because of all that, I'm about to embark into one of the greatest gaming journeys I have ever done, containing a 20-year-old gameplay loop that definitely stood the test of time, because yeah, this game is old, and so are you. A surprisingly massive social aspect, despite the fact that this challenge disables pretty much any form of social interaction. Most importantly though, a very steep learning curve. So why would a new player even further handicap themselves? And why would said player actually enjoy the resulting gameplay? But probably the number one question on all of your minds: why is this room that I just cleared respawning all enemies at once? And why is there now 20 angry guys after me that want my blood? Well, for this we have to go all the way back 2 years to be precise, to this crucial point in time. I wasn't kidding when I say that this is a long journey, but this is precisely the moment where I entered this game for the very first time. But funny enough, this is my second character created, so technically I already failed the challenge before I even started it. Please let me explain. So while nowadays you have dedicated servers, a massive community, and probably way too many personalities of varying kind broadcasting every second of their gameplay, 2 years ago there was none of that, and it was beautiful. All you had to do was download an add-on, stick to the rules written on this website, and just play the game on a particular server though. A tiny detail I missed and eventually had to rectify. So while I am on my second character, I actually made it to gameplay for the first time, with however ridiculous that sounds. And when this is how the journey starts, this might probably be a little bit of a foreshadowing for the absolute insanity that is about to follow. Because it might turn out that playing a massive game like this for the very first time in a hardcore game mode might maybe not have been the best idea after all. But it actually started out pretty decent, I would say, because we are currently witnessing my second ever kill in this game, and I am rewarded amongst other things with a small black pouch, which is notable. Why? The drop chance for this particular one is 0.1%. So on average you would have to go full South Park and kill 1,000 boars, giving you a little context on how ridiculous it is to get this item that early. But better yet, this is probably the most important item to get early on, especially when playing hardcore. And me saying that is the perfect transition, of course, to talk about the rule set of this game mode. And while World of Warcraft is a MMO, for the foreseeable future we're removing pretty much all of these aspects, and we're not grouping with others, we're not trading with others, we're not buying things from others, and craft things ourselves. But well, the most consequential thing, if we die, we delete the character, which pretty much turns this massively multiplayer online game into a massively game. Or, Be that as it may, this is the moment where the game then just throws you into this world. And now you do stuff. Come on. And I mean that in a absolute literal sense. You are now just standing here, and the only thing indicating any form of progress is this guy, a Kultunk, with an exclamation mark above his head. But he really just tells us that we might just do, but for now a better suited task is given by someone else. So you pretty much just wander over to the vague direction given to you until you find a guy with a question mark above his head, indicating the end of a quest. And I've now given you the fundamental gameplay of World of Warcraft. Find the exclamation marks, experience minor and major detours, and then usually return to a question mark. And if you've done everything correctly, you are rewarded with various things. Most importantly though, experience points, as those are probably the sole motivator to play the entire thing, to be honest. Because, well, after all, we do finish the challenge if we hit level 60, which is the max level. But you know all of that already, I'm assuming. What you might not know is that for some reason, this way of playing a game captivated me way more and way faster than a certain other way of playing the game could have. I am so far in no position to make any reasonable comparison between Classic and Retail, and I am also getting that suspicion that I might have already spoiled myself by having Hardcore as my very first Classic World of Warcraft experience. All I can say is that the two versions of the game are massively different, and whether that's good or bad, this is not yet the right time to give a definitive answer. All I can say for now as a little TLDR, I touched World of Warcraft as a whole for the first time during Mists of Pandaria, so essentially in the midway point of the entire timeline. While pretty much everyone tells me I missed the better half of the game, I'm now actually able to figure that out for myself. But if in the current version of the game after an hour of playing a new character, I am already level 9, have a wide array of spells available, all the fly paths by the way, and I'm getting exactly told what to do and where to do it next, then there might be a slight difference to me picking up my first additional combat spell, which massively transforms the game into a 2-button gameplay now, me as a whole merely just being level 5, and shortly after being slightly confused and lost in a nearby cave, because I'm not entirely sure if I read the quest text correctly, then the first hour of my classic experience definitely looks a bit different. For now, I'll just leave it at that one statement. I would have never considered telling the story of reaching max level in Retail. I'd much rather tell you the story of Little Mage making it out of the starting area, even after temporal setbacks of not being able to read quest text correctly. But truth be told, I really have to get used to this idea that you actually have to play the game. Pretty much all of modern gaming is just spoon-feeding everything you have to do, but here you actually have to engage with the game and its world. It's crazy. Fascinating concept. One that I very much welcome, actually. Who knew that engaging players on multiple cognitive levels enhances the gameplay experience? And if the game is good, you actually don't need 7 different battle passes to motivate players to play your shit. How did we unlearn this knowledge, by the way? But there's also one other massive aspect about all of this. And while I am stumbling about my very first minor city, doing the oh-so familiar run of collecting my and I further enhanced my gameplay through adding social interaction. Another relic of the past that, again, most game developers 10 years ago unanimously agreed to get rid of. But if you make being a nerd your profession, I think that was an inevitability. And while in today's games you're interacting with buttons mostly, there once was a time where you actually had to interact with other human beings to get in-game content done. Then again, especially given my extensive League of Legends background, I do sympathize with people that see the removal of the human aspect as something very much positive. But if you are playing a massively game for the very first time, there might be something positive about other people being able to chime in every now and then. Also, nothing beats while you are pressing your 3 available buttons for the aforeseen future to be able to read the absolute nonsense that is being put out into these chat channels. But the biggest aspect, obviously, the sense of community though. Because while Hardcore was played on only a particular server, that didn't necessarily mean that every single player on here was joining the game mode, and there were very little, but still, players playing the intended way. Imagine. So uniting all of us special kind of players into one guild so we can interact with each other was maybe a really smart move. And also probably part of why this was so successful. And so it eventually happened to happen that while I was taking on my very first rare mob, this is a big deal by the way, I learned about cow tank. So what the hell is a cow tank? And this is easiest explained by saying that throughout every iteration of Hardcore World of Warcraft that I have played meanwhile, every single guild I was part of has adopted some form of mascot in the form of a new player that has no idea what they're doing and therefore dies a lot. And in early Hardcore World of Warcraft, this person was Cow Tank. And his specialty to earn this rank, he had more characters attempted than highest level achieved. And that is fucking crazy. Because at this point in time, he was level 12 or 13 and you do the math. I refuse to do it. But it was incredibly heartwarming to see that every single time this guy needed help, the entire community came out of the woodworks and got the issues solved. This might probably be that sense of community that I was talking about earlier. And maybe the human aspect in video games wasn't really a bug after all. but a feature. But joining a guild had one additional, even more entertaining side effect: death alerts. Because those might happen while you are running through a troll village, stealing their skulls for some reason, just for the guy that asked for that skull to give it back to you? Okay, thanks, I'll just put it here as a memento of the beautiful time spent together. Anyways, while you're overall just a mischief maker, pretty much killing your own kind, I just now realize, every once in a while you might hear an excruciating sound, alerting you of the death of a fellow guild member, giving information on who died, what level they were, what they died to, accompanied with a wave of condolences every single time, of course, and eventually their last words, which at times generates some tragically comedic combinations. But I decided to show them to you as I've come aware of them in the game as tragically comedic little treats every now and then. And speaking of tragically comedic, while I was at it, you know, the troll genocide, I accidentally aggroed this thing with a mask, and while I had no time to regenerate enough mana, I couldn't kill before it heals back to full. I haven't really talked about my class choice too much, but I'm a mage. I need that blue stuff to deal damage. Without that, I'm stuck with swinging my stick with incredible efficiency, as we can see, and the red flashing is now indicating low health, not only triggering anxiety, also forcing a health pot to not succumb too early. While all of the waiting regenerated enough mana to cast a few spells, reading the word resist is probably the worst thing you can see as a mage. On top of that, everything's flashing red again. Both our mana and health are dropping dangerously low, and I am running away in fear. Good news, so is my opponent. Oh, and cow tank hit 14. Congrats. And this little delay allowing me to regenerate enough mana for one last spell. Not only showcasing how just pulling one too many mobs out of accident can actually get you killed in an instant, and almost turning me into one of these mini celebrities for a few seconds that shows up on everyone's screen. But better yet, just a little over 4 hours into this gameplay, I managed to almost kill myself in a video game. And I am not even halfway through the starting area. Picture this, the tutorial, and I'm already showing signs of absolute incapability of playing this game, which, to be fair, was to be expected. And so far, it's not that big of a deal because I'm mainly just impacting myself. But what if there was a way where other players' lives could be directly altered by my gameplay? And I am not talking about griefing others while you're doing your quests, or getting griefed by others while you're doing your quests, or while you're doing your quests. You're doing a lot of quests in this game, by the way. I am talking about Orgrimmar. Well, not directly, but this is where everything starts. The main capital of the Horde. And here is its mayor. And there's a conspiracy, and pretty sure there's a bunch of interesting story, but all that you really need to know, I now have to enter this cave, which is the deadliest place in all of the starting area. And all of that just really to kill however many people, because we don't know that until they give us an insignia. Now, isn't that exciting? Well, it's really not. The exciting part is when I'm attempting this, because it was already after my first opponent that I had to very quickly figure out that there lurks danger around every corner. So I decided to opt for the very reasonable, let's just reset strategy, and let's try this again. And if I use at least some of the already very limited amount of brain cells available to me, I am actually able to beat a guy in a 1v1. Incredible. No insignia though. So far, relatively decent, but there's additional inhabitants to this cave that come with a pet, very quickly turning this fight into a rather unfair, in my opinion, 2v1 scenario. One that I was very clearly not in any way prepared for. A very quickly double spell combo puts the opponent at near death, but after finally taking him out, well, so am I. So I'm at a crossroads, and I have to make a decision. Do I use the health pot to get back some of the health I just lost? Do I use some of the items that I acquired in my past journeys that are rather helpful, actually? Well, or, and now watch this is going to be incredible. I run towards the opponent, looting the corpse, getting the quest item, dropping to 9 HP in the process, again, finally chugging that health potion just before another melee attack would have killed me, ultimately being faster than my opponent, and making it out into the day, releasing an incredibly potent cocktail of hormones in my brain that I was in no way prepared for, bringing me to levels of behavioral reinforcement that are, well, better known as the point of no return. Well, fuck. Fine, let's do this. Let's talk about why I almost killed myself again in a video game, because there's something more to it than just my utter incompetence, because the task we just finished is technically not a requirement, but the continuation brings us to the only part where we are allowed to play with other players in the hardcore game mode, and I'm talking about dungeons. Big enclosed areas with very difficult opponents that you are allowed to take upon with 4 other players. But because it's hardcore, only other hardcore players are allowed to be in your group, and you're only allowed to do a dungeon once per character. And now that I've come in contact with this concept in Classic as well, I set my goal for the first one available, RFC, the Ragefire Chasm, which is conveniently located within Orgrimmar. You know, the questline we just did, where we almost died, as per usual. The thing is though, you have to be at least level 10 to enter the place. I am currently level 9, which, looking back, makes entering that cave even more ridiculous, and getting out of there alive essentially a miracle. But a more reasonable level requirement for one to also be able to fight the opponents inside is at least the level 13. So I got to work. I consulted a local harpy problem, which got me to level 10, a milestone not only exciting my fellow guild members, but also unlocks talent points, further strengthening my character, if only I knew what I was doing here. Then I made the fateful mistake of accepting Misha Thorkren's quest. Why do all orcs sound like they're Scandinavian, by the way? Anyways, Misha is suspecting the local crocs to have eaten her son. And to confirm her suspicion, we now have to kill essentially all of them until we find Kron's amulet. It's the name of the guy, and his amulet. Which in itself is a sound plan, but I now spent the next 30 minutes monotonously running up and down this river, killing every single crocolisk in sight. And I wasn't even sure if I was doing the right thing, because the quest text merely just hints at what you might be doing to actually find what we're looking for. But at least I got level 11 in the process, which makes us cross this bridge and enter the Barrens. Pretty much one of the zones of all of World of Warcraft. And definitely not the right place for you if you tend to like animals. Because here, we kill all of them. To get to level 12, of course. And some more to finally hit level 13. And so it happened to happen, while I was killing more animals of course, that I spot a person currently forming an RFC group in the guild chat. To my surprise and against their better judgment, I get invited, head back on over to Orgrimmar, making my way over to the dungeon entrance, and I'm about to enter my first ever classic dungeon. But as mentioned, I am not alone, and through cosmic connections beyond my understanding, there is someone else doing their first ever classic dungeon together with me. And I was very excited when I realized that I will share this experience with none other than Cowtank, mascot of OG Hardcore Classic and self-proclaimed kind of a big deal. It's already rare enough to run into a particular person in this massive world, but the fact that I am allowed to share this virgin voyage together with him, incredible script, Blizzard. I like it. The only thing left to do was, well, convincing the big deal that he actually doesn't have all quests done yet, which yours truly obviously came well prepared for. To be honest, complete accident. But after a slight delay and yet another good show of the community, our little group here was ready to go. So this is the Ragefire Chasm. Where's the raging fires? Where's the chasm? And most importantly, do we all have our quests ready? Let's double check. I think I mentioned before that you're doing a lot of quests in this game, by the way. Anyways, with the last piece of artificial delay out of the way, we were truly ready to go. And this might sound weird that a game is even able to evoke that in one, but there was a certain respect that I had in this very moment, because again, now my gameplay is actually able to negatively impact the gameplay of others. And not only do dungeons have better opponents, visible through the golden fancy art around their HP bars, but there's usually usually mechanics, either with all of the angry stuff found in this place, or with the place itself. So if you enter a dungeon while having no clue whatsoever what's happening inside, while that might also get everyone killed, you can kinda see where that emotional state came from. It definitely helped seeing that I seem to have a reasonably competent group of people, despite certain backgrounds, and we were able to meticulously dissect rooms filled with opponents by having a focused target, pulling things out of danger, and overall having a rather structured approach to this whole thing. Something that I couldn't honor at the time, but would come to miss in future dungeon runs eventually. Oh, and there's one other major part why people come to these places. Gear, of course. And better yet, given that gear is equally shared amongst everyone, being the only person that needs magic type gear in the entire group does have its perks. And while I was technically still trying to figure out how it works, I am now the proud owner of a new wand, which is a decently big deal for mages, especially early on. But not much time to think, our first boss fight is upon our hands. And after I have now seen what everyone always memes about, I was pressing one button the entire time and it just kinda fell over, despite there being a slight level difference. But after that experience, I was truly confident that despite the lack of experience we bring to the table, we will definitely be able to pull this off. I even figured out how to use my wand, learned that I had to level it first to even be able to hit my opponents, which, funny enough, was the perfect circumstance to do that. And while we prepared for the next boss fight, Swiftman the Druid fell to death in Thunderblood, his last words being, "See you all in the next life." Tragically comedic. Be that as it may, for the next boss fight, we actually need a strategy, because he does this massive AoE fire attack that deals a little bit of damage. But to be fair, as much as I'm now joking about this obviously is the very first dungeon in the game. And besides there not being too much complexity in there, I was genuinely enjoying this because I had no idea what was happening around the next corner. So this was, after all, really exciting. And there actually was someone that was definitely agreeing with my statement here. So we marched on, securing me some more of that loot. Two opponents later kill another boss, securing me additional loot that essentially replaces the one that I just found. Yeah, I like this game. And on our way to the final boss, well, another little treat for myself. I do think I like this place. And just like that, it was already time for the final boss. And as much as I would like to show you an exciting fight and close calls and probably dead people, this was rather unremarkable. But the experience as a whole was truly worthy of being my first ever classic dungeon. And I am not only saying that because I got all the goods, but I'm also being teased for the next dungeon ahead, which I'm definitely looking forward to. All that's left until then is leave the dungeon, say goodbye to your fellow teammates for now, and of course the quests, which are scattered around all over the world. And wouldn't you know who we get to meet while we come to Thunderbluff turning in our quests? Man, those celebrities, they're everywhere. And so I spent a nice and relaxing time fishing with Cowtank at that little pond on top of Thunderbluff. Quite a romantic place, I gotta say. Until inevitably, you know how it is with celebrities, my time has come. And so I poured myself over to the Barrens again, obviously to kill more animals, because given my recent upgrades, I am all the more prepared for this now. But this place has something more to offer. And given how much I enjoyed the recent dungeon, the next one happens around here. And for that, we need to reach level 17. But all of the animal slaughter so far is currently only netting us level 16. To make it all the way to 17, I actually had to switch it up. I know, I'm really sorry, but I was helping the local goblin engineers commit a little economic espionage. But somehow I was the good guy here. Not really sure how that works. But after cashing in my reward at the local port, there was one other thing that I shall do before we venture into further dungeons. And this is the exclamation mark in question, because this sends us to Northwatch Hold, a place I did visit in the past, but due to my powers being not quite up to par yet, I had to evacuate early. But I have returned. And why are we here? We have to kill the 3 leaders to send a message, or something like that. Just always remember that we are the good guys. Just don't question it. Regardless, the first rather odd thing is that no one's guarding the entrance. That was definitely slightly different the last time around. This in combination with bodies on the floor usually indicates other players around. And wouldn't you know, there they are. Which instead of taking this tower first, makes me take this tower last, which we will find to have a little bit of an impact. For now, I'll just fight my way to one of the towers further in the back, because once we gain access to said towers and actually make it up to the top, we will find the respective leader that we are looking for guarding said tower up here. And while I wasn't really sure how to take this fight, accidentally stumbling down the stairs essentially settled that we will do this in here. One awkwardly messy, way too close, double kill later, we are 1 out of 3 bad guys defeated. Just one tower over, we're pretty much doing the exact same thing, but actually a little less messy this time around. But the outcome remains the same, leaving us while I'll flee the scene 2 out of 3. And funny enough, the only one left, Captain Fairmount. Essentially the most difficult opponent in the biggest tower, as if it was meant to be. So once again, I got to work. But it turned out merely getting into the tower was a little bit of a more difficult task already. So I was taking a little bit more precaution this time around. I was ignoring this exclamation mark and the 2 guys guarding it. Looks like something I don't want to get my hands on, I think. For now, I'd rather keep on beating up people upstairs, while further up, the floor already being filled with bodies. As mentioned, usually indicating other players. But I once again happened to run into one of my teammates from our RFC adventure. Small world for sure, is what I mean every time I say that this game is actually massive. Good old people definitely deserves right away, which allowed me to sit back and watch him finish the job in style. So I guess now it's my turn. This does sadly include re-clearing the entire room once everything respawned, but a little bit of murder later, and the only ones left are Captain Fairmount and her pocket healer. The same we turn into a sheep, so we can focus on the main event. A surprisingly short fight after, and we get the job done. Only thing left, kill the other guy and get the hell out of here. Which brings us to the incident. I do cast my last frostbolt before running out of mana, start swinging my trusty wand at the girl, even get lucky and freeze her, which allows me to get some distance, and that's when it happened. Right before I got to kill her, which by the way would have probably leveled me and gotten back all of my mana and HP, the entire tower and every opponent inside of it resets, respawning a whole bunch of angry men, and now they all wanna kill me. I miraculously make it to the bottom floor and the race was on. Health bot just in time to keep me alive, and wait. All of this chaos was so much of a stressful moment for me that I just now, watching the footage, realized that Peepo Knight actually came back trying to save me, being a beautiful metaphor for how there is way more on the line than just mere playtime. Because every single thing I have been through, from the very beginning, every lucky coincidence, every tedium, every close call, every friendship made, and every adventure mastered. All these things only exist because I do. And while they're already being memories, they would fade for good should I, rendering them completely worthless because of being non-existent no more. Because what is the worth of the past journey if I can't continue it, nor let alone remember it? But if the first thing I see right outside the tower is that the entire entrance has also respawned, and there is approximately 20 more angry men waiting for me on my way out of here, oh, this is no good. But I've come prepared. Remember the skull we've been generously given back? It steals health from an opponent. Merely step 1 in my great plan of salvaging this chaos. Step 2 involves getting as much distance as possible without coming too close and angering additional opponents. And it almost worked because I lost the interest of pretty much almost all the angry men inside the tower, and this one's definitely beatable if it weren't for yet another healer. Not only very quickly undoing all the damage I've just done to that guy, but once again leaving me in a rather familiar state of low HP and low mana. Only this time all of my progress was just undone. So here I am, literally backed into a corner. Angry guy running at me that wants to punch me, healer lady that is actually already targeting me with her spells now, and an overall sense of hopelessness as I've exuded pretty much all my tools. In an Hail Mary attempt of running out of here, aggro additional opponents, drop down to 3 HP in the progress, but I have reached a point of acceptance. And just as People Knight once again attempted a save, I succumbed to the chaos. But as I was lying there listening to his cries, this allowed a different kind of perspective. I am not able to continue this journey, obviously, but everyone else is. And all the experiences are merely carried forward by everyone I inevitably came in contact with. So ego aside, one does realize that the journey wasn't for nothing just cause you died. Because while I might be gone forever, my life is still with them. And then again, this is a video game. And as we all know, video games are way better than real life. And the reason for that is probably the most fundamental concept of hardcore World of Warcraft. And it actually allows us to answer a few questions, such as, will we probably have another adventure with Cowtank regardless? Why did suddenly a lot of angry men respawn for no reason? Or probably my favorite, why the hell did I do the entire quest with a fucking fishing rod on my back? And those are only a few of the issues that can simply be solved by bringing the learned experience with you, because here, and it's essentially the catchphrase of the entire game mode, you can simply go again.